Desmond, I don't know how many times we said when we heard the news that Texas and Oklahoma would likely join the SEC that was just the first domino to fall. It was never going to be the only thing to affect the landscape of college football. So does anything about this surprise you or get your attention?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Like you said, Wendy, actually it's funny that a couple of weeks ago we were doing College Football Live, and that's when the news broke that Texas and Oklahoma were both going to join the SEC. And now here we are, now a big alliance between the ACC, Pac-12, and Big Ten. And to keep it 100 with you, as a commissioner, for you to sit there and watch what happened with Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC, if you would just watched it and not made any moves to either try to enhance your conference or at the very least protect your asset, meaning the schools, then you would probably been fired for a derelict of duty. So it made perfect sense that these three conferences, I thought it would be the Pac-12 and Big Ten. The ACC was a surprise, but you had to know that these commissioners were not going to just sit there on their hands and let Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC and do nothing. That was the first domino, Harry, and now we just saw another domino fall too.
Yeah, Desmond, I think you're right, and I think that was one thing that a lot of us were looking at these other commissioners like, hey, like we knew that there was going to be something else that happened, especially when you look at Bob Bowlesby, it's like, how do you not know what's going on in your conference? But the thing that's amazing to me is that, like, the handshake agreement, like, that's it. I understand that there's a lot of other hoops to jump through and they wanted to get something done quickly. But a lot of this is just symbolic, which I guess is like okay and that's fine and stuff like that. But if you look at the list of things that they had, they listed a lot of things that matter, right? Like racial justice issues. They had the gender equality things on there, which we had with the NCAA tournament last year. Listed all these things that all of us can get behind, right? Because they're very important issues. And then got to the things that they actually wanted. So if I'm a player from the Pac-12 and the We Are United group, I'm kind of looking at this like, hey, like, you know, I don't know how seriously I'm supposed to take this if we don't have something documented and agreed upon, so I know that you're going to take this seriously. So it all kind of feels a little flaky to me, but they, like you said, Des, they had to do something.
Well, at the very least, Harry, it feels early, I think, to your point, because eventually these things have to be signed, sealed, and delivered, or you know, the handshake is great, but there's a lot of dollars at stake. So again, when we rattle off these conferences, at least in principle, have agreed to align, what you don't hear is the Big 12. Okay, we said nothing about the Big 12. Here's what the commissioners had to say about the conspicuous absence of the Big 12.
I'm confident that under Bob's leadership, that he will do what's best for his conference. And again, you know, a lot of these issues that we've been dealing with are issues that have been on the table here for really weeks and not months. And so a lot of this stuff is fresh and new, but I'm sure Bob will figure things out.
Let me put it directly. We want and need the Big 12 to do well. The Big 12 matters in college athletics. The Big 12 matters in Power 5 athletics and our FBS group.
Des, look, I agree the Big 12 matters, but if that's the case, you know, where are they at this point?
I tell you what, that's the million-dollar question. I would love to hear one of them answer that and be as honest as they can. Obviously, all conferences matter in the big landscape of college football, but the Big 12, they just lost their two biggest assets, Texas and Oklahoma. I mean, they're playing the conference right now, but we know they're on their way to the SEC. So I don't think that the Big 12 was as attractive to these other three conferences when they wanted to form this alliance. I think that's the biggest issue here, Harry. Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma, they just aren't as attractive to anybody.
Yeah, guys, there's no way that, at least in the eyes of these other three conferences, that the Big 12 matters enough, because if you don't have some sort of legally binding agreement in this, and you're having this handshake agreement in a Zoom meeting, those invites don't get lost in the mail, y'all. They're not important enough in the eyes of these other three conferences, and it showed a lot today.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.